Thank you. I believe that our most important assignment as human beings living on this planet at this time is to embody our role as a living ancestor. Now, that might sound a little confusing because of how we currently understand ancestry. Typically, when someone says that word, we conjure up someone who's come before us, a relative or a figure in our cultural lineage, but it's someone who's no longer living. And yet, even if we're not always conscious of it, we know legacies are made while we live, not just how and when we die. Now, I started seriously thinking about what it means to be a living ancestor in 2017 after attending a Black women's luncheon in Portland, Oregon. Hundreds of Black women gathered on that day, everyone from eager vendors with their colorful merchandise to revered local organizers to the suited up church ladies with those fashionable hats. Everyone was there to celebrate the beauty that is us. At one point during the program, elders were being honored for their contributions to our community. And one by one, each elder would stand up, receive a token of appreciation, and then they had an opportunity to get on the mic and share words of wisdom. And I think there were about 8 elders that shared that day. All of them shared something so precious, but one elder's words remain seared upon my heart to this day. That elder came to the podium and with so much conviction, she stated that her mission for this next phase of her life was to plant a seed for a tree under whose shade she knew she would not sit. She was focused on leaving behind and planting seeds, watering them, nurturing them for future generations to enjoy the fruit of. And as I sat there, fully trying to absorb the weight of her words, it struck me. Why wait until I reach elder status to begin planting my seeds intentionally? What would it be like to know, to act upon the fact that I'm building a legacy day by day? I'm a coach, and people come to me with these kinds of questions all the time. They are struggling and need support with what gets in the way for all of us. And that's coming up against other people's expectations. Sometimes we even adopt them ourselves. So these potential clients, they fall into one of two extremes. Those extremes let me know right away how fast we're going to move in our journey together. That first category are folks who are on the fence. And trust me, they're not getting off anytime soon. They are waiting on a conditional state in order to live their life to the fullest. So I hear a lot of, well, when my kids get older, then I'll be able to, or when my bank account reaches a certain amount, Stephanie, then I'll finally have enough. Or when I lose X amount of pounds, then it'll be okay for me too. I call these folks the mythical someday crew. And unfortunately, we all know that someday is not a date on the calendar. The second category of folks, they're on the other extremes. They cannot wait to get started. Some have received a negative diagnosis of some kind, or death is at their door, whether it's their own or someone close to them. Either way, it has them thinking about life way differently. And all of a sudden, that dusty bucket list, that's at the forefront of their minds, not other people's opinions or society's confines. The good news is you don't have to wait until a conditional date. You don't have to wait till death is knocking at your door or receive a negative diagnosis to be thinking about the legacy you will leave on this planet. Each of us as living ancestors are shifting the course of human history by the way we are and what we do on a daily basis. None of us is operating in a neutral space. Every single thought, every belief, every action, we are either reinforcing the way things have always been, or we're actually pushing up against the status quo. And I believe that if more people understood the power of the present that they're creating, our world would be completely and forever transformed. Luckily, we as living ancestors, we have access to two sacred practices that are crucial to informing how we can consciously construct our day-to-day. That first practice is to remember the past. To remember the past is to more fully understand our present. When my parents have time on the weekends, I sit down and I listen to them tell their life stories over Zoom. And let me tell y'all, it got really juicy when each parent came to the place in their story when they met each other. There were just a couple discrepancies on who said and did what. This started as a get to know you exercise, and I think I had an inkling that capturing their stories would be useful for posterity's sake. What I didn't fully grasp until later was that the telling of these stories, the telling of them themselves, is a transformative act. I understand better who they are and also who I am too. And in this way, remembering is a crucial aspect of our identity formation. Literally, to remember is to put ourselves back together. My parents telling their stories has helped me piece together and better grasp what I'm going through. In a collective sense, the same is true. Living ancestors, we must remember our past, otherwise we are doomed to repeat it. Because we haven't fully grieved the past or reckoned with it. Right now, our collective memory is pretty short. It's one of the reasons why we can't remember the latest Black Lives Matter hashtag. But if we want this moment to be different, we would have to see that it isn't new. It is a recreation of our past. And all of the revolutions, all of the movements of those times, they hold so much wisdom for us here today. From how we need to resist to how we need to slow down and to rest. Which means nothing about 2020, and I mean nothing, not the pandemic, not the global mainstream uprising for Black lives, not social and political unrest, nothing that has happened here in 2020 will matter if we forget to remember. Our collective memory gets embodied and encoded for generations to come. And it is stronger and more accurate than any history book will ever be. And that's why we have to preserve it through the act of remembering. Living ancestors, besides remembering the past, we have another sacred practice to help us construct the here and now. And that is dreaming ourselves into the future. We are tasked with finding ways to currently create a world that doesn't yet exist. All of the work I do in the world is all about identity. It's about who we are, why we're here, and how we're supposed to be with one another. When I imagine the end goal of individuals, of communities, of companies, of systems doing their respective identity work, I see a world where everyone is free, whole, and enough. It's a world I haven't seen or experienced wholesale just yet. But instead of waiting until it's true or for someone else to make it so, I am practicing that future now. Every single day, I think about how I can embody being just a little more free, sitting a little more fully in my wholeness, and embracing just a little bit more enoughness. I've seen how doing so makes room for others to try it on as well. And that is how transformation happens. As I shift how I see and treat myself, it shifts how I see and treat other people. And each of us doing that in the many communities we're part of, it starts a ripple effect of change. And so it applies to our collective path. Think of any pivotal moment in history. We've always had people practicing the possibilities of a future they haven't yet known, to get us closer to that future. Enslaved Africans ran toward a freedom they hadn't yet seen. Our civil rights comrades walked for years, boycotting public transportation, not knowing what the outcome would be. And now, for us, what will our future generations say we practiced in order to make their reality a possibility? Y'all, we are living ancestors. We got history to make. Our lives are the front lines, and everything we do, everything we are, is planting a seed. Our work, the work we're sent here to do, it cannot be outsourced. You know, I think about that elder who shared at the luncheon so very often. I think about what it took for me to be on this planet in order to be in Portland, to be invited to that luncheon, to hear those words at that very specific time. I think a lot about how her story has traveled since then. I've shared with so many friends and family. It's been retold on my podcast and through its artwork, which has reached thousands across the globe. And now that story is reaching you and countless others who are listening. Let the seeds of that elder's story and its impact serve as a powerful reminder that you are a living ancestor. Thank you.